Hi guys. I chose to do this this talk because when we're going into the unknown, when we're unsure of what's happening, we usually turn to divination in olden times to help us. So there have always been shamans and witches, mystics in society that provided the role of helping people see what's going on in the unconscious. There was always a person a shaman, if you want to call them that, or a healer, or someone that you would go to understand what was happening in the unconscious, or what was happening if they got sick or ill, if they had a bad spell on them, or if there was some kind of voodoo or bad luck. So we've had these people in our societies for thousands of years, especially when we were in communities, and the role of these shamans, witches, healers, have slowly been eroded to the point where now we have the increase of science and rationality, logic, and we've lost our connection with the mystical world, with the magical world. And what we're seeing is a completion of this process where we're coming back to that mystical, back to that magical, back to an understanding that there's a whole multi-dimensional worlds out there that isn't that we can't see, we can't hear, we can't experience with our five senses. And we need an extra sensory perception in order to understand these other realms, these other dimensions. And divination is one way of accessing the answers that are hidden in our subconscious, and also to get in tune with what's happening deeper inside. It's the quickest way, I would say, to getting in tune with what's happening in the subconscious. So tarot is the obvious one, the oldest one. It comes from Marseille, from France, and they've been doing it since the 14th century. So tarot has been around for a very, very long time. Divination has been around for a very long time. I studied Yoruba culture in university, and in Yoruba they use shells, and it's the way the shells are thrown is the way they're read. Likewise with coca in the Amazon, there's people who read coca leaves, and it's the way that the coca leaves lands on the ground. And coffee reading in Turkey is very popular, where you drink your coffee and then you turn your cup upside down and you lift it up and you see what pattern the coffee has left. Many different ways of using divination. Some people use dowsing to look for water, to search for what's hidden. Again, divination is all about going into what's hidden, seeing outside of what's hidden. So I wanted to talk today because what I've seen is a massive rise in people wanting to know what's going to happen next, and a massive increase in interest in having their tarot cards read, or finding out what's happening, or getting some explanation as to why we're feeling like we're feeling. And it's because these kind of really intense experiences, these big shocks to the system, leave us trying to find a rational understanding, a rational reason for why it's happening. And it's very difficult to understand the rational in the irrational. We know exactly, of course, that there's a virus going on, and we have to self-isolate in order not to put too much pressure on the NHS. That's understandable. But what's coming up within each one of us is where often the confusion lies. Why we're triggered by maybe grief or fear or anxiety, what's going on deeper and hidden in the unconscious. And tarot is a fantastic mode to unlock what is actually going in on that unconscious, to actually see what's going in underneath. So I started with the Rider-Waite pack. The Rider-Waite pack is a very nice, easy pack to start with. It's one that most tarot readers use. If you're looking to start with tarot, with divination, then I suggest using the Rider-Waite pack or the Mythic Tarot. Those were my two that I chose. Now I don't actually have them to show you because I no longer use any other tarot except for the Osho Zen Tarot, which I'll come to in a minute. But the tarot cards are set up very much like the a pack of deck of normal cards. And they each have, you have 22 major arcana, and then the rest is the minor arcana, the pack of cards. So you have ace, king, queen, knight, and then you have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you have 4 separate symbols. So you have the cups, the wands, the pentacles, and the swords. So the cups represent emotions, the wands represent intuition and thoughts, the pentacles represent materialism, and the swords represent like the rational mental mind, on a very kind of loosely, it's a very loose interpretation. And a lot of the tarot is steeped in symbolism, but Christian symbolism, Kabbalic symbolism. If you look at a lot of the tarot cards, and if you go a bit deeper into the occult, like Aleister Crowley has his tarot cards, the Golden Dawn, it has a lot of occult symbolism in it. So tarot is always really, and divination has always been connected to the occult, to mysticism, to the unseen, to the unknowing. And the way we read the cards, or the way the cards is read, is that the person connects in with the cards, sends their energy and their consciousness into the cards, and then the reader is able, by pulling the cards out, is to be able to read the cards, and to be able to decipher and interpret the symbols on the cards to directly relate to the person who has come for the reading and has the questions. So that's the kind of traditional way of doing it. Likewise, you would go to like a Yoruba witch doctor, and you would come with their problem, and they would shake their shells and throw them out, and they would scatter across the ground. And then, the Yoruba priest, witch doctor priest, would be able to read how they fall, what that means to the person. What I have found, I started my tarot journey in many years ago, when I was 17 actually, when I went to a tarot reading with a really superb tarot reader called Pam Bull. And she read my cards, and she said to me that I had a gift for it, and that she would like to teach me. So when I was 17, I went on a psychic development course and picked up the tarot, and I've never put them down for 30 years. I've read everywhere. I've read for magazines. I've read for nightclubs all over London, China Whites, Browns. I've read personally. I've read on trains, planes, on automobiles. I never go anywhere without my tarot. I feel it's a very important gift when people are feeling very confused, to pull a couple of cards just to unravel some of the confusion. And it does seem to have the ability to clear up what seems to be quite a big, messy problem, once we can go and see what's hidden underneath the problem. Because when we're trying to work out something from our minds are very limited to what it knows. And so what our difficulty is this: we're trying to work out something which we don't actually know by the pros and cons, and when we work it out from the pros and cons, it's very hard to come to a decision. But when we understand the conditioning, the patterns and the habits that are happening deeper below us, we can see why we are coming to some decisions, why certain patterns keep happening in our lives, and we can kind of, by bringing it to the consciousness and seeing it, we can change it and alchemize it into something new, or give us the opportunity to make different choices. So it's about bringing things up to the consciousness so we can make different choices on it. So why it's good in times of adversity. So when we're not knowing what's happening, it's diving deep in to find out why it is. So I use the Osho Zen Tarot, and this is the Osho Zen Tarot here. They are a beautiful set of cards, and this is why I use them, because they are slightly different to the traditional tarot pack. And that is because underneath they give you a word like harmony, like the dream, things that we can relate to. And I find that when I do readings or and empowerment readings for people, when you're giving them the Two of Cups or the Four of Wands or the Six of Swords, you're having to explain to them what that actually means in tarot terms, and then what that means to themselves for themselves. Whereas when you do tarot, when you do these ones, the dream, harmony, the source, people can resonate with that word and therefore get their own inner answers, as well as giving your answer. So what I find is that also it's really important when you do a reading, is for the person themselves to kind of come up with their own answers. Then it becomes much more powerful. And when you have cards that actually give you playfulness, you're giving you direct answers to some of the situations that are happening. So the aim of a tarot reading, I would say a successful tarot reading where you can really give that person the advice they need, it's not in the card, it's in the question that you ask. The question that you ask actually holds the power of what the cards can offer. So a card cannot give you a yes or no answer. Should I marry him? Someone comes to me for a problem. Should I marry this man? The cards are not going to say yes or no. So what you need to do is ask the questions. Well, why are you debating that? What is the reason behind you debating it? And that person, for example, could say, well, we've got different ideas on parenting and I'm worried that might come out. And then you say, okay, well, let's pick a card to see what your views are on parenting and how strong you are with that. And from then you can start unpicking the real issues behind the questions that we have. Because when we have questions, it's often underneath the questions is where the real psychological knot is holding. It's not it's not the question itself. It's the knot underneath of all the conditionings, the patterns that we're holding, that brings that confusion to the surface. So in times like this, you can also pull for yourself. So pulling for yourself is also being very clear what question you want to actually ask the cards. So asking a question like, why do I feel grief, is too, it can be too broad or something like that. But you could ask something like, these waves are coming up. What can I do to help myself when these waves come up? And pulling that card and seeing what that card says. And it could work in two ways. It could be a very practical card that you're doing something, but it could be a deeper card for you to dive deeper. Well, why are you feeling grief at this time? Why is it triggering you? What's happening deeper underneath? So there's many different levels and layers that you can work with oracle cards and tarot cards to give you a greater understanding of the situation that you're in. Now, tarot is a traditional way of doing it, but there are so many oracle cards as well out there that and the world, it has exploded with oracle cards in the last 10-15 years, absolutely. And so I suggest, if you are looking to start dabbling into the wonderful world of tarot and oracle divination, and it is a wonderful, wonderful world, believe me, it's a beautiful tool to have in your toolbox, even if you don't do it to others, just for yourself, to get some recognition, so understanding, some clarifications. Then it's going with the oracle cards that resonate with your belief systems. So there's many out there. You just need to go online and you will see them all, from angels and to dolphins to all sorts of cards. So it's really about finding the one that you feel drawn to, that you feel called to, that mirrors your belief systems, in order to get an understanding. This is a very nice one that I was given as a gift, that a friend of mine, this is a lovely one, which is called the Enchanted Map Cards. They're quite a nice one. This is Colette Baron Reed. She also does the Shaman Wisdom ones as well. And oracle cards are very different to tarot, and I want to explain why they're different to tarot. So tarot is very good at doing deep readings, where you go deeper into the reading. So you start with one card. And anyone who's done a tarot card with me, I pull on average 15 cards in an hour's reading. 15 cards on average. It's about 15 cards for an hour's reading, about 10 cards for a half an hour, 40-minute reading, more or less. If you're doing an oracle card, don't draw loads and loads of oracle cards. Oracle cards are good for like a one message or two messages, but you wouldn't use them for a whole reading. So if you're feeling a bit lost, or you just want a quick pick me up, then an oracle card really works for that. A daily oracle card, or you can do it with the tarot, but again, it's not using the tarot for what the tarot is. Oracle cards are good for if you're picking one or two cards. Tarot is if you want to do a proper reading, diving deep and looking more deeper into what the situation is and what you want to unpick. So there's many different layouts for a reading. The Celtic Cross is the usual one, but if you go to any tarot book, they'll give you lots of different ways to read the cards. Every tarot reader has their own way of reading the cards. Every tarot reader has their own relationship with the cards, and it becomes a relationship. If you use the cards a lot, if you work with the cards a lot, then you start having a relationship with them, and they become a part of you. And so the cards you'll work out which way you would like to do it, because I don't use the Celtic Cross. I like to, so how I do it is I get an understanding of what you want to look at. And then we pull the first card, and then from the first card we pull the second card, third card, and I go pulling the cards as I do the reading. Other tarot people will ask you to pick 9 cards or 7 cards immediately from the pack, put the pack away, and then put them out on the table. So there isn't any right or wrong on how a reader reads tarot, or how someone who's doing divination reads tarot. It all just depends on that particular person and how they resonate with the cards. So I like to do it because I like to see the unfolding of the story. So that's why I pick one after another. But I have to say, it's all practice. This isn't a practice. It's a practice game. And the more you read tarot, the more practiced you will be. The key to divination is trusting your intuition. I would say that's the biggest key that you need. So starting to read tarot is also a really good way of starting to listening to your intuition, because when you pull the cards and you are deciphering what the cards are saying to you, that other person, you don't really know them, you don't know what their situation is. So you're having to trust what you're hearing on the cards, what you're reading from the cards, and to give that person the divination, the understanding from the cards, the interpretation of the cards. So if you're reading and you don't trust that your intuition is right, then it's going to be very difficult to interpret what you're reading. So the more you read for people, the easier it becomes to interpret the cards and to trust your intuition on what's coming up for you to say to that person in order to help them with their situation. Also, one thing also about the tarot, which I find is what I really, really like about, is that there's no such thing as a negative card. There's no such thing as a negative message. I really that's a very Christian morality, devil, angel, good, evil, good, right, wrong. I think we need to come out of all of that, and that's why I like the Osho Zen, because we come out of the judgments and very much into what the situation is and what tools do you have at your disposal to deal with the situation at hand. So that's why I personally prefer the Osho Zen Tarot. I also really enjoy as you do divination is to and as you practice is to also start practicing on yourself. The only difficulty about practicing on yourself is that very often you can interpret the cards to fit what you want to hear, which I've gone through that process myself, and I learned that it doesn't quite work, because actually it's better that someone that you don't know reads for you. Otherwise you could be in a situation where you're kind of interpreting the cards in the way you want them to turn out, and you're not actually allowing yourself to dig deep enough into the subconscious to actually hear what your inner voice is saying. So I've been reading tarot for a long time, but when I picked up the Osho Zen, I did 1 year of free tarot readings. as I travelled for a year in 2011, and I had my pack of tarot on me, and I just read for everybody. Whoever would want a reading, I just read for them, and just read and read. And then after about a year, I started to get really into it, and that practice enabled me. And then I started charging for it, and been reading like that ever since. And anyone who's had a reading from me or come to any of my cacao ceremonies, I use tarot all the time. I use the cards all the time in my work, because it enables us to dig deeper into the subconscious. And when this pandemic hit and we were put straight into isolation very, very quickly, big shock, not only for individually, personally, but on a collective. It was a massive shock. And not only just on a collective of our island, but of the world. We were all hit on a collective connection. We're all interconnected. We're one species on this planet. We're all interconnected from our hearts. So when it happened, we all got a big shock in our hearts. And I really feel that that shock in our hearts really kind of shook us all on a very deep psychic level. And I was told by the cards that it would be really good to bring them out and start sharing them much more. So on a Sunday, I decided I'm doing a weekly reading to give us an idea of what's happening on an unconscious collective psychic level, to enable us to help navigate the darkness. And this is why tarot is so important in times of adversity, because when we don't know, when we cannot work it out, when the truth is so distorted, when everyone has an opinion and everyone has a belief, picking up a tarot and diving deep in to hear what your inner voice is, what's hidden in your subconscious, can really stabilize the wobble, can really stabilize and give us clarity in that darkness, to give us an understanding of how we can move forward, how we can take the next steps, how we can move forward. And how we can navigate this unknown and this quite difficult time, especially as we're letting go of what's past. And that's what we know, is what's past. We don't know what's coming up towards us. And just having even a brief tarot reading really helps to stabilize that boat, or stabilize the heart, so that we know what we're working with and we have more choices. And it's all about the choices that we have. And when we understand our subconscious, we're more aware and more connected to these choices. And once we're choices, we're more empowered. And when we're more empowered, we feel much better, calmer, more peaceful, more harmonious. When we feel more peaceful, calmer and harmonious, our immunity boosts up and we become healthier and happier. And it protects us and helps to prevent us from actually getting sick and ill. So the tarot has a very important place in these times of adversity, to stabilize and get answers for where there isn't any answers in the rational. At this moment, I've seen some really beautiful friends watching. Hi, Michael. Hi, Danny, Ivan. If anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask me about the tarot, if you just type it in, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you have about tarot or about the oracle cards. I'm happy to do a Q&A. So if you do feel like you have any questions, just pop them at the bottom, and I will read and I will answer them as much as I can for you. I also really feel it's very important to recognize the importance of the mystics, the shamans, the herbalists and the healers at this time of adversity. Because always, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, always in a community there was a healer, a shaman, someone where people could go to if they were feeling troubled, mentally troubled, if they felt that a curse had been put on them, if they had felt that there was some weird magic happening and they couldn't understand it. And there was always someone to go to help support them in that way. And we have basically killed and destroyed those beings in our community. So it's very important that at these times of adversity that there's people to go to that can help you access some of this unconscious, subconscious issues and give you that stability that you need. So if you are feeling like a bit unstable, a bit wobbly, then going to a healer or a shaman or someone who can do divination, just to give you some understanding of what's happening outside of the rational, and bring you back into the magic. And when people do readings for me, they always feel the magic. There's a lot of magic in the readings, because there's a lot of magic around divination, and there's a lot of magic happening when we can come out of our conditionings. So there's one question here. It's, how do you stop yourself from reading what you want to see into the Osho Tarot cards? Very, very good question. I would say that you can't. You have to be quite strict. And you kind of know if you're reading something into it, especially around love. So it's kind of being very aware of yourself. The more aware of yourself, the more you know yourself, the more you can read what the cards are saying to you without kind of wanting them to give you the answer. But I would say if you have a very confusing decision or to make, or you need some clarity over a situation and you're so emotionally attached to it, you can't read the cards for yourself. If you've got an emotional attachment to the outcome, someone else has to read those cards in order for you to get the clear answer. Otherwise, that emotional attachment will give you a kind of a rose-coloured spectacles on the situation, and you won't be able to get a clear answer. So yeah, your emotional attachment really depends on that. What do you think in buying a second-hand deck? No, I wouldn't. Definitely not. It's worth no. If especially if it's been used a lot. Like my cards, this is like since 2011, this is my 4th pack of Osho Zen that I've used. So I use them until they're pretty gone. If it's a brand new unused second deck, then yes. But if anyone's been reading them and using them and got their energy in them, I would say really worth investing in a brand new deck. So that's your deck, your energy, your vibration, and you break the pack open and you work with the pack. It's like getting a new drum. You name your drum and your drum awakens once you get it. It's a bit like that with the tarot. It's you need to be able to break break the cards open and have them for you, because the more your energy is in them, the more you'll be able to read them more clearly. So definitely important to invest in a new pack of cards. And again, finding the cards that resonate with you. There's thousands of tarot packs out there, and beautiful tarot packs. There's Mother Earth Tarot. There's so many different beautiful packs outside of the oracle cards. And it's about finding the one that resonates with you, with the pictures that resonate with you, with the energy that resonates with you, and that you feel you could read. So it is really about connecting to what you feel you can read. So just wondering if anyone has any other questions that they would like to ask. Anything that's been around divination that they're interested in. Anything around tarot that they're interested in. Just want to say hi. Hi, Jan. And first, and I just want to say one last thing about tarot and divination. Is it's really we've all got intuition. We can all read cards. There's the divination isn't someone special. It's basically someone who's been taught it, who has in tune with their intuition, who can pick up the energies of the other person and read them and connect with them, and can read their energies and read their energies through the cards. And so it really it's not someone who's particularly psychic or special or all of that. I wouldn't say that. I would say it's someone who's dedicated to really diving deep into themselves and exploring themselves, and at the same time really listening to their intuition, really trusting their intuition, and really starting to work with the cards in a way that helps them in order to help others. So it is practice. And if you do have a psychic ability, then definitely divination is the great first step into a foray into looking at what's in the hidden, what's in the unseen. There's also lots of books out there, but there's nothing like actually getting the cards out, getting a feel for them, getting an understanding. The first thing that Pam Bull said to me, my psychic teacher, my spiritual teacher, she said, first of all, you look and you see what the symbols are saying to you. So you might know that the 2 of Wands means such and such, you've read this explanation and that explanation, but when you get that card, there's lots of symbols in the card, and it's about learning how to read the symbols, learning how to read the different things that are going on in there, and relating it back to that person who has asked you to get who has asked you for the question. A tarot reading can't be really long, shorter than 15 minutes. 15 minutes is really the shortest that you can do. An hour is a good time for a tarot to get really deep into the issues, and really deep into the processes that's if someone needs to do them. So I think that's all that I have to say on tarot and how to use it for adversity. If you do have a pack at home, I do suggest getting it out and dusting it down. Also, the great thing about tarot as well is that in these kind of times when the energy is really high vibrational on the planet, because so much is happening, it's much easier to read them. So this is a really good time for divination right now, and so because everything's so unclear and unknown. So actually jumping into them now is a really good time to start utilizing them, because the veils are lifting and our intuition is much stronger, and also those realms between the veils between the different realms are lifting as well. So It's a nice time to start utilizing your cards if you have them. Jan says, I sit with my cards to get to know them. Yeah, that's one way you can do it as well, in dream time, working with them as well, utilizing them. The most important thing about the cards is to use them on a regular basis. So if you just pick them up and say, okay, I'm going to work with them, and then after about 3 or 4 days you put them away, it's like a muscle. You have to keep on going to the gym to work out that muscle. It's a bit like tarot. In order to get good at the tarot, really connected to the tarot, you have to be working with it on a regular basis for a while, and then you can get really into the flow of it. I just want to do a call out for a beautiful friend of mine, Tiffany Cruxera, who does a transformation game using tarot as well. So tarot can also be used in a journey to find your way through and navigate through. So her thing is Transformational Tarot. And there's some beautiful tarot readers out there and some beautiful divination readers. And also, if you're thinking about finding an oracle deck for now, that's a really good way of starting. Amazon, if you don't shop in Amazon, but if you do some Googling, you will find lots of oracle cards around. Doreen Virtues are very well known, but there's so many, and these oracle cards are really good starting points to help you on your own personal journey through this uncertain and chaotic time. So if there isn't any other questions, if anyone's got any questions, just to type them down into the messaging, and I'll answer them. But if there isn't any tarot questions left, I wish you all a really wonderful rest of the evening. I am now got to work with my tarot. I'm going to do a little reading for myself. This is a good time to maybe get your cards out, get them on the floor, put them out. I'm going to pull one card for now for the group for this reading. Let's see what the cards have to say. So maybe a card for what we need to know in regards to reading tarot, and what's an important message that the cards have for us in regards to reading tarot. And that's what I mean by the questioning. If we ask a question like that, then often it's much easier to get the answers. So how I do it when I read the tarot on screen like this is, usually if you're face to face, you pick the cards, is that a number from 1 to 9 pops into the head, and it is 6. And it's that trust. Okay, so often we question ourselves, is it 6, is it 8? Once the number comes in, it's like, it's a knowing inside. Again, it's trusting that intuition, trusting what that little voice is saying to you, the prompts that little voice is saying to you, and reading the card. And then that really helps to strengthen that intuition within you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Success. So yes, if you read the tarot, you will get success. And again, what I love about this card is that it's the tiger for me represents fear. Okay, and everyone will have their own interpretation of this card, and that's why it's great. But for me specifically, and the question, remember, we said was, what card do we need to know in order to use tarot? What do we need to know? And the card is fear. And when we're in fear, when we don't know who we are, and so much stuff is hidden in the unconscious we can't see. Fear is false expectations altering reality. So false expectations altering reality is what stops us from moving forward, because we have, and especially now in this unknown, our brain is hardwired to negative, so we're constantly going to be thinking the terrible negative things that are going to happen next. And I think that's one of the biggest problems at the moment, is that the negativity and the fear is so highly ramped up that we can't think clearly enough to get into the understanding of who we really are. So what it's saying is that when we control the fear, we can actually walk smoothly on the path on the planet. And it's the playfulness, it's the success, it's the understanding, it's the blessings and the burdens that enables us to overcome the fear. So when we read tarot, that really helps us to understand what's happening beyond, in our hidden unconscious, beyond that fear, in order for us to move forward. So do pick up your tarot cards tonight. Success is in the air, and wishing you all a brilliant rest of the night. Enjoy your tarot. If you are wanting to know more, please, or you've got a question around tarot that you didn't want to put up on the thing, do let me know. I do tarot readings, so if you're interested in a tarot reading, please go onto my website and you can look there. I also do on a Saturday special lockdown tarot. I don't know if I can call it that, but it's a quarantine tarot. It's a 15-minute tarot reading to give you a brief overview of what's happening, and that's on a Saturday. I have I have about 8 slots on a Saturday, so I just do a day of tarot to help people just have an understanding of what's going on, and gives you a taster of what's to come. So big love to you all. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Next week I'm doing on how to tune into your intuition. It's going to be next week's Facebook Live, and how we can strengthen our intuition in these times, giving you lots of shamanic tips and tools on how to strengthen your intuition. So wishing you all a wonderful rest of the night. Enjoy the successes that are coming your way this week, and stay safe. Bye for now.